The HOA president tried to steal my lake access 3 times before she figured out I was a land surveyor. First time, she sent a lawyer with a threatening letter. Second time, she got the county to send me a violation notice. Third time, she sent an $85,000 excavator onto my property to build a dock she had no permission to build. That's when I sent the sheriff. My name is Derek Brennan. I'm 62, retired, and I've spent 35 years of my life determining exactly where one person's property ends and another person's begins. Which is why when Brenda Kessler told me my lakefront beach was community property, I didn't argue with her. I just smiled, nodded, and started building a case. 6 months later, I was standing at the property line I'd surveyed myself 27 years ago, watching that 12-ton excavator grind to a halt. The operator climbed down, holding the court order I'd handed him. He read it twice, looked at the heavy chain I'd stretched across the access road, and climbed back into his cab. The diesel engine coughed, and he backed up the hill. 200 yards away, Brenda's face was the color of a stop sign. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had every email she'd ever sent, every trespassing incident on camera, every lie she'd told documented in triplicate. And I'd been waiting 6 months to use it all. But she didn't start out threatening to sue me. She started with a smile and a casserole. April 2024. I'd been living in my cabin for about 5 months when Brenda Kessler knocked on my door. She was wearing a pastel cardigan and holding a glass casserole dish with aluminum foil over the top. "Welcome to Clearwater Ridge," she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm the HOA president. Just wanted to introduce myself." I invited her in. We sat on my porch overlooking the lake, and she told me how wonderful the community was, how everyone looked out for each other, how they had traditions that made this place special. Then she got to the point. "We've always had access to the lake through this property," she said, gesturing toward my beach. "The previous owner was very generous about letting families use it. I'm sure you'll want to continue that tradition." I didn't know much about HOA politics back then. I'd bought this land in 1998 as an investment back when it was just empty acres in a dirt road. Paid $32,000 for 2.3 acres of prime lakefront. The lake itself, about 40 acres of spring-fed water, was technically private, surrounded by undeveloped parcels. Over the years, a developer bought up the surrounding land, carved it into lots, and built Clearwater Ridge, a gated community of 247 homes. Nice houses, quarter-acre lots, lake views. But here's the things about views. You can see the water, but you can't touch it. Not legally, because every single one of those lots ended at the ridge line, 50 to 80 feet above the water line. My property was the only one with actual lake frontage. The only one with a deed access road down to the water. I'd built that road myself in 1999. 12 feet wide, compacted gravel, proper drainage. I'd paid for every load of stone, and I'd surveyed every inch of it. When my wife died in 2018, I decided to finally build our dream cabin on that land. Took me a year, moved in November 2023. I was looking forward to quiet mornings with coffee, watching the sun rise over the water, maybe doing some fishing. I wasn't looking for trouble. So, when Brenda made her polite request, I said yes. "Keep it reasonable," I told her. "No big parties. Pick up your trash. Respect the property." She thanked me profusely, said the whole community would be so grateful. What I didn't realize was that Brenda wasn't asking for a favor. She was confirming what she already believed, that my beach belonged to everyone. See, Brenda Kessler wasn't just the HOA president. She was also a real estate agent. Kessler really. She'd sold at least 60 of the homes in Clearwater Ridge over the past 10 years. And according to her sales materials, every single one of those homes came with community lake access. I found that out later. For the first 8 months, it worked fine. Families would come down on weekends, swim, paddle around in kayaks, leave by sunset. I'd wave from my porch. They'd wave back, no problems. Then in December 2024, I took a walk down to the clubhouse to drop off my HOA dues. That's when I saw the architectural drawings taped to the window. Big color renderings, a 2-tiered dock with a covered pavilion, composite decking, solar lights, kayak racks. At the bottom of the page, Clearwater Ridge Community Beach Project. Estimated cost $85,000. I stood there staring at that rendering for a full minute. The dock was drawn right onto my beach, my property. I walked back to my cabin, pulled out my survey, and traced the property line with my finger. No question about it. That dock was going to be built on land I owned. Land I paid taxes on. Land the HOA had zero legal claim to. The next morning, I found a laminated notice staked into the sand. Notice of construction. The Clearwater Ridge HOA will begin Phase 1 construction of the Community Beach Amenity Project on January 15, 2025. This project is funded by a special assessment and approved by the Board of Directors. For questions, contact Brenda Kessler. I pulled out my phone and called her. She answered on the second ring. Hi, Derek. Did you see the notice? Exciting, right? Brenda, I said, keeping my voice calm. Did anyone from the HOA ask my permission to build this dock? There was a pause. Then she laughed. A short, confused little laugh. Permission, Derek. We don't need permission. That's community property. No, I said it's not. Well, she said, and I could hear the smile fading from her voice. We've been using it for years. Everyone knows it's part of the HOA. Show me the easement, I said. Another pause, longer this time. The what? The recorded easement. The legal document that gives the HOA access rights to my property. Show me that, and we're fine. I don't think we have anything like that, she said slowly. But it's always been, if you don't have an easement, Brenda, then you've been trespassing for years, and if you build that dock, I'll have it torn down and build to the HOA. The line went quiet. Then she said in a voice I hadn't heard before, cold and clipped, we'll proceed as planned. Derek, this is for the good of the community. And she hung up. That night, I pulled every document I had, the original survey, the deed, the property tax records. I looked up the HOA covenants online. I read every word, and that's when I realized they had nothing. No easement, no recorded access rights. Nothing. The HOA declaration written in 2004, 6 years after I bought my land, mentioned community lake access in vague aspirational language. But there was no legal description, no meets and bounds. No notarized agreement. It was all smoke. And Brenda Kessler, real estate agent and HOA president, had been selling homes based on a lie for a decade. I sat back in my chair and looked out at the dark water. Then I picked up the phone and called an old friend of my late wife, a real estate attorney named Ramona Vasquez. Ramona, I said when she answered, I need your help and I think you're going to enjoy this. Ramona Vasquez had been practicing property law for 28 years. She'd handled everything from mineral rights disputes to boundary wars between neighbors who'd stopped speaking to each other in 1987. When I explained my situation, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Derek, I'm going to be honest with you. You have what we call a slam dunk case. But HOAs are vindictive. They have money. They have lawyers on retainer. And they don't like losing. If you fight this, prepare for it to get ugly. How ugly? I asked. Fines, liens, harassment. They'll make your life miserable for as long as they can. I looked out at the lake. My lake, the one I'd owned for 27 years. What do I need to do? Document everything, she said. Every interaction, every trespass, every threat. Get it in writing, get it on camera, build a case so airtight they can't wiggle out of it. And then we hit them so hard they never try this again. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I ordered a trail camera from Amazon, the kind hunters use, motion activated with night vision and a time stamp. Mounted it on a tree at the entrance to the access road, angled so it captured everyone who came down. Then, I printed property line markers, bright orange, and staked them every 20 feet along my boundary. I wanted there to be no confusion about where my land started. On December 18th, I sent an email to the entire HOA board. Subject: Line Re Community Beach Project Body. I do not consent to construction on my property. The beach area is private property as evidenced by the attached survey and deed. Any entry onto this property without my explicit written permission constitutes trespassing under state law. I expect all construction plans to be halted immediately. I attached my survey, my deed, and the relevant property tax records showing I'd been paying 100% of the taxes on that parcel since 1998. Sent it certified. Return receipt requested. Brenda's reply came back in 47 minutes. Derek, you're being selfish. 247. Families depend on that lake access. It's been part of this community for nearly 2 decades. We've already awarded the construction contract and collected the special assessment from homeowners. We will proceed as planned. On January 15th. If you have concerns, you're welcome to attend the next board meeting. Selfish. That word stuck with me. I'd bought this land when it was nothing but trees and mud. I'd paid for the road. I'd paid taxes on every square inch for 27 years. And now I was selfish for not letting them build an $85,000 dock on it without asking. I forwarded Brenda's email to Ramona. She called me. 10 minutes later. Derek, this is gold. She just admitted in writing that they're proceeding without your permission. That's knowing and willful trespass. What's my next move? We file for a temporary restraining order. Stop the construction before it starts. And in the meantime, you keep that camera rolling. I want footage of every single person who steps foot on your property between now and January 15th. I hung up and looked at the calendar. December 18th. I had 28 days until the excavator showed up. 28 days to build a case that would end this before it started. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Date, time, description, evidence. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. The trail camera started recording on December 20th. By Christmas Eve, it had captured 19 separate incidents. Families walking down to the beach, unaware they were on private property. Kids splashing in the shallows. A couple having a picnic on my dock. I didn't confront anyone. I just logged every entry into my spreadsheet and saved the footage evidence. On December 27th, I ran into my neighbor, Pete, at the mailbox. Pete Chun, mid-50s, worked from home doing something with medical billing. She'd always been friendly, waved when she saw me. This time, she looked around like she was checking for surveillance, then leaned in close. Derek, I heard about the dock situation. Yeah, I said it's a mess. Look, I don't want to get involved, but she hesitated. Brenda pushed that contract through really fast, like suspiciously fast. The board didn't even get competitive bids. She just said her friend knew a contractor who could do it cheap. Her friend, Stephanie Marsh. Her husband owns a construction company. I think it's called Shields Construction. Something like that. They do a lot of county work. I filed that away. Shields Construction. County work. Thanks for telling me, Pete. She glanced over her shoulder. I didn't tell you anything. Okay. Brenda denied my fence variance last year because I didn't follow proper procedure. She's not someone you want mad at you. I understand. I called Ramona that night. The HOA awarded an $85,000 contract without competitive bidding. Does that matter? Depends. She said if there's a conflict of interest or kickback, it could invalidate the contract, but that's a separate issue. Right now, we focus on the trespass. One thing at a time. Got it. Derek, I need to warn you about something. If this goes to court, they're going to try to claim prescriptive easement. That's when someone uses your property openly for so long that they gain a legal right to keep using it. How long is so long in the state? 20 years. Continuous open and adverse use. The HOAs only existed since 2004. That's 18 years. Exactly. And more. Importantly, you gave them permission. That negates the adverse requirement, but they'll still argue it. Be prepared. I looked at my trail camera footage. 19 incidents in 7 days. If this kept up by January 15th, I'd have over 100 documented trespasses. Let them argue. Prescriptive easement. I had timestamps. January 15th arrived cold and clear. I woke up at 6 o'clock, made coffee and walked down to the access road. The chain was already in my truck bed, 15 feet of heavy gauge steel, the kind they use to secure construction sites. The padlock was Navy grade, the same kind we used on equipment in the service. Bolt cutters wouldn't touch it. At 6:45, I heard the rumble of diesel engines coming up the main road. I called Deputy Frank Hollister. Frank and I had met a few times at the hardware store, talked about fishing. He was former Marine Corps, late 50s, the kind of cop who actually read the law instead of just guessing at it. Frank, it's Derek Brennan out at Clearwater Ridge. I've got a construction crew about to trespass on my property. I have a restraining order from the court. Can you meet me here? On my way. The excavator came around the bend at 7:03. Big yellow cat, treads clanking, operator in the cab scrolling on his phone. Behind him, a pickup truck with Shields Construction LLC on the door. 2 workers in the bed. The excavator stopped at the property line where my orange markers were staked. The operator climbed down, lit a cigarette, and looked around like he was trying to figure out if he was in the right place. I walked over. "Morning," I said. "Can I help you?" "Yeah. We're supposed to start a dock project down there." He pointed toward the beach. "Do you have permission from the property owner?" He looked confused. "The HOA hired us. I'm the property owner," I said, "and I didn't give permission." His face changed. "Look, man, I don't want trouble. I just go where my boss tells me. I understand here." I handed him 3 documents. "This